All right, I think we're live, ready to rumble on Rumble. Common Sense Ohio coming at you from Ohio with all sorts of common sense, not just Ohio news, national news. We got lots of stuff coming your way. For those who have not followed the show, now you can. We are commonsenseohioshow.com. What do? Well, we bring common sense to all the issues that we're facing day in and day out. And why Ohio? Well, one, we're in Ohio, and two, because Ohio is the launching pad for the world. If you didn't know that, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are the heartland, right from the middle, as I like to say, in Ohio. So
after Virginia, the most presidents of any state, the sixth largest population state, Ohio's got it going on.
They got it going on. And it used to be that so goes Ohio, so goes the presidency. I think that's, Ohio's, it looks like we're going.
We're pretty red.
We're going red this year. But look, it's sort of like everybody else. You've got two huge blue dots, or maybe three now.
Three.
Huge blue dots.
Yeah.
And then the rest of it is like one big red blob.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't over till it's over.
It is not over till it's over. So, I mean, look, for those who haven't followed the show, we're going to do a couple different segments. We're going to do a quick little what happened on this day in history. And then we got news with Norm, justice for all, and then wonderful outrage, a new segment we're going to start doing. But, this date in history, I was sticking to World War II forever. Why? Because I like World War II. I found it sort of fascinating. I think if you study World War II history, you realize World War II is still probably being fought on some level. And it has sort of framed what is going on in our world in a large way. And as they say, those who don't study history are doomed to repeat it. But we're going to expand it. One, because I'm getting tired of talking about World War II all the time. And two, because I think there's other stuff that's interesting. So this day in history, on September 20, 1973, the highly publicized Battle of the Sexes, a tennis match from top women's player Billie Jean King, who at that time was 29 years old and sort of at the peak of her game.
Oh, yeah.
Takes on Bobby Riggs, sort of this self-proclaimed chauvinist who I think got wheeled in on a chariot, pulled by some hot chicks. In this, this thing was like a circus. And she defeated him.
And he was well past his prime.
Oh yeah, but a pro in his own right.
He had been a top male professional tennis player for a lengthy time, and he boasted that he could beat Billie Jean. And Billie Jean King said, "Bring it,
bring it." Yeah, and he brought it, and she beat him.
Oh, she beat him decisively.
Yeah. Now, why did I pick this fact? Well, because this is, it was a good victory for Billie Jean, and I think it made a statement. I think for women in general, and at that point, that statement was probably much needed.
Right.
But what's interesting is Billie Jean King has sort of come out against this idea of trans men or men who think they're women playing in the women's arena in professional sports, even though she's the one who beat Riggs in this tennis match, this highly publicized tennis match. And anybody who's ever seen the interview of John McEnroe, I think it was on the Today Show or one of the morning shows, where they asked him who the greatest tennis player of all time was, and I forget who he named, but it wasn't a woman. And they're like, well, not Venus or Serena.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, she's great. But you asked me the greatest of all time. Are we talking like the greatest men's player or the greatest women's player?
Right.
They're like, why can't the greatest women's player be the greatest of all time? And he's like, well, look, what do you want me to tell you here? You take any of the top men's players in their prime against any of the top women's player in their prime, and they will defeat. It won't even be a close match. And then later on, I think Serena, I think it was Serena, was getting interviewed on one of the night shows or the talk shows at night. And she said that. She's like, look, this is stupid. There's no, it's just a different game that the men play than the women play.
For sure.
And, and now Billie Jean is sort of getting some blowback after being this avant-garde figure in female sports that was, I think, like I said, sort of a big victory at that time.
Yes.
And now they're discounting her because she doesn't agree that men should be able to compete with women.
Well, she has always been classy.
Billie
Jean King, even after defeating Bobby Riggs, she didn't roll around in a pile of glitter and brag about it.
And as I understand, he didn't he took it graciously as well.
Oh yeah, and I think it was a good lesson, in watching your excessive zeal get away from you. But at the same time, she understood the context of beating him. Mm-hmm. She wasn't beating Jimmy Connors, or John McEnroe.
And
right?
she couldn't have.
Yeah. So she didn't roll
at that time. Right.
She didn't roll around, and she wasn't nonsensical about it. She was pretty matter of fact. And you're correct about this, about her courage, because she is a out of the closet lesbian, And for her to take the position, because people try to cram all these LGBTQ.
Right. So you're this, so you must believe this,
so, like,
otherwise we cancel you.
Right. We're all one big matrix, and we all agree, intersectionally on everything, And she's like, and she and, people like Caitlyn Jenner are like, well, no, actually, we're individual people with our own opinions about the legitimacy of men playing in female sports.
Yep.
And that's ridiculous. And she's correct.
And
so is Caitlyn Jenner.
And there's, going back to Riggs too, it's like there's this, you said that he accepted it, or I think we talked about he accepted it graciously.
They became friends.
They did, right?
Yeah.
But there's an old saying that pride comes before the fall, right?
Yeah, of course.
And it's such a, maybe I'll get to a story later when we wrap this up, but pride is such a dangerous, vicious sin.
Yes.
And if you read C.S. Lewis' Mere Christianity, he's got a whole chapter dedicated to pride. And if you read the New Testament, there's lots of talk about how important it is just to be humble, right? Just be humble.
Yes.
It's always becoming to be humble.
Yeah.
Be surprised when you achieve victory, be humble.
It takes thought to be, you can't fake it.
Right.
You have to think through it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's the fact of the day. And from there, we're going
to. May I just add that this week, I think, I don't know if it came out of the White House or it came out of Speaker Johnson's office, but they are awarding Billie Jean King a Congressional Medal, I think, of Freedom, I think is what it is, for her contributions to advancing female sports.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Look, I love female sports. I think it ought to exist. I think it ought to exist.
I love females
safely.
By the way,
I always have. Right. Right. But it's
a different game that they play, and
not inferior.
Exactly.
Different.
It's not. It's different. And it's just different, and it's fun to watch.
So
as it is the men's game of any sport.
Have you been watching? Who's the pro ball player? The what's her name from?
The Indiana. Caitlyn. Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
I watch the highlights. She's like Larry Bird, man. She's it's phenomenal.
She's fun.
And they have a league of great players.
They do.
Now they're in the spotlight that they're really good. And you didn't pay attention to it before.
I will just throw out there that in sports and other kinds of activities like chess or whatever, in sports that do not require a major physical fitness component where your body structure is from birth different, and then that determines your ability to build up your body, say for wrestling or basketball or whatever. That women excel in a variety of motorized sports. One of the best acrobatic pilots in the world is Patty Wagstaff, for example. Mm-hmm. I mean, she's right up there with any of the World War II guys or Korean War guys that go to these, now it would be Vietnam era, but any of these military pilots that do these shows that do air shows and acrobatic maneuvers. She's just top of the drawer.
Well, now we got to talk about something because look, there's I think a more interesting discussion than saying that the best male tennis player would lose to the best female tennis. It's like a more interesting discussion to me is what you just brought up. Sure. Where do we draw the line?
Sure.
Because it is like, say, competitive archery or competitive shooting.
Annie Oakley.
Or the duathlons.
Annie Oakley was the best
Olympics.
shot of her day. She outshot Buffalo Bill at Buffalo Bill's own shows.
So the better argument to me, or the better discussion to me, would be like, all right, can women, should we allow men to compete with women in those kind of sports, or vice versa, or should we just combine those, or should we have two different leagues, one for men, one for women? And I can see virtue in all those.
Yes,
yeah.
It doesn't make any difference. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of things that men do cohesively as a brotherhood or a club or whatever, and I think there's a lot of women do as a sisterhood or a club or whatever.
Yeah.
That so you have women leagues in skeet shooting or men's leagues in skeet shooting, or maybe mixed. I can totally see those arguments.
Absolutely,
those are better arguments to me.
Sure.
And then you get to things like race car driving or pilots.
That's right.
And I've sort of listened to various discussions on this, but you wonder why they're mostly male dominated. And just as you were talking there, it's like, I talk to people upstairs in my conference room all the time, young men who are in trouble.
Steve's a lawyer.
I'm an attorney. I represent folks charged with crimes, and I'm sort of fascinated how people come to end up in my office. And men particularly, me included, when I was in my teens and 20s, I was a jackass. And as I tell my clients, you're a jackass. The problem is you don't know it.
Yeah.
And I was a jackass and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Meaning I took unnecessarily stupid risks all the time.
And that's how young men are wired.
That's how we're wired. There's a reason we send our young men to go fight wars, because this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, isn't yet developed. And you know, for me, it was like 28. The light comes on, and I'm like, this is stupid. I'm not going to do this anymore.
Let me take the vodka bottle off the dashboard.
But my point is this is a direct compliment to women. They don't suffer from that. They don't suffer as much
for sure
from this inability to assess risks and do stupid things. And there's also it's probably the same reason why we have more men in prison, why more men commit suicide, why more men commit crimes. You know, that it's probably all related, and that can help explain, short of like societal sexism, why there's not more women doing these risky endeavors.
Yeah. And as we try to make women more and more like men, you know, with this social bias now that, you know, you've got to do man things. Women are increasingly getting caught up in male behaviors.
Right. Well, they never want to take on, like they being the cause-oriented people out there, the agenda people. They never want to take on like what I consider the most admirable male traits, which is like quiet leadership, being responsible for yourself, taking care of your family. They always say women should do whatever men do, so they should just go, you know, hook up all the time. Or
so they're going to prison
in free and open sex
in bigger numbers.
Act like men. If you're acting like a man doing those things, you're acting like a jackass, and you don't even know it. It's back to the same problem.
Exactly right.
So we as men try to overcome the problems that they're trying to become.
And traditionally, women.
And I'm not saying women are trying to become that, but it seems like that's what they're being pushed to do.
Well, exactly. Right. And women used to have the role of toning down male behavior.
I was thinking the same thing too.
You
is
know,
that was their role in it? It's like, come on, stupid. Don't be you know, and bring that 28-year-old back to the 25, and you know, or I should say, get rid of this.
Right. We have all been married or are married, right?
Yeah.
And your woman,
we're all fathers here.
Your wife makes you a better man.
Oh yeah,
very true.
Oh
it completes you as a man.
Very true.
So people say, why be married? Blah blah blah. It's like, because it makes me a better man.
Right.
Right. Because it completes the other half, the half that I'm missing.
That's right.
And I firmly believe that, and I think the opposite is also true.
It is.
So anyway, that's my fact of the day based on 1973 September 20. Thank you, Billie Jean King.
Yeah. And that's typically what you hear on the show. One piece of news, and we go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, that is a rabbit hole.
He's like, wait a minute. You started with Billie Jean King, and you went here? Okay. Yeah.
And now I have that Michael Jackson song going around in my head, Billie Jean. I mean, God almighty. You know,
what did you come in last week with? Some other song that drove me nuts. I think it was Journey.
Yes. It was Steve Perry,
Oh, Sherry.
Yes, exactly.
By Steve Perry. For God's sakes, don't start that again.
Right. All right, so here we go. News with Norm. So what happens is Norm brings this long list of stories that we all comment on. We'll get through as many as we can before we have to wrap it up.
So what is happening with this issue of the Haitian migrants in Springfield? It is now, you know, you got congressional investigators.
Springfield, Ohio, I should add.
Springfield, Ohio. Yes, not the one on Homer Simpson's show. This is the real Springfield. More and more people are investigating the facts surrounding this program. And the astounding statistic that came out of Congress this week is that it isn't just 20,000 some odd, not sure of the number, but around 20,000 in Springfield, which used to be a city of 60,000. Adding the 20,000 makes it an 80,000 city. But it's not just 20,000. 731,000 Haitians have been paroled by President Biden and Vice President Harris into the United States since them taking office. And at least 227 of these parole airline flights, as well as other methodologies to get poor Haitians who definitely are facing an economic nightmare in their home country, bringing them to the United States. And I don't recall anybody voting on this. I don't recall.
Well, this is the problem.
There's no transparency. And how they got allocated, why you would drop 20,000 of them in a city of 60,000. I don't care if they're Norwegians or Cincinnatians or people from Cleveland. You can't just take 20,000 people from anywhere and drop it into a city of 60,000.
And expect the infrastructure to cover it.
They have one ER room at one hospital with an ER room for the whole city of Springfield. Imagine you dump 20,000 new people there.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, I mean, yes, the city has to modify itself to understand what's going on. But to your point, I don't think 20,000 was dropped in there, but 20,000 are there, though. Grant, I'm not disputing that.
So there was a group that came, and then more came after that.
More came in, they pulled them in, but very fast. Yeah.
So you wonder. So here,
and the city can't handle it.
The infrastructure is not there to handle it, and the reason the infrastructure is not there to handle it is because nobody told anybody what was going on.
Right.
This is the problem with these kind of policies. If Biden and Harris think that this is the good thing to do,
and Governor DeWine,
we'll get to him in a second.
Yeah.
But if our government, if our executive branch thinks this is good, why didn't they tell us?
Exactly.
If they think that it's okay and it's the best thing to do, why not tell us? If they think that this is what is best for the world, why not tell us and make your case?
Because if it's going to happen and you're designing this, then it needs to be help ahead of time.
And then you can plan for it.
Exactly. And that's perfectly fine.
It may well be
build for it.
That bringing Haitians to the United States is a good humanitarian thing to do because they're the squalor that they're facing at home, whatever it is, I don't know, but I hear it's terrible. It may be that there was a very good thing. We've brought in immigrants in this country for years and years and years, but not in secret like this. This is like this sort of midnight delivery.
It should have been. It should have been debated and rehashed and proven that it's a good idea.
Make your case, and if your case can't be made in public, it can't be made anywhere, and that's the problem.
And help those cities that you're going to do this with. And yes, there's employers there that couldn't find workers. Right. And now they have them so
maybe
now
it's a good thing in the long run.
It is, but to your point, there was no development to help the infrastructure to help that.
And you hear the criticism of the citizens of Springfield complaining about this, but you know what? They have a beef. They have an argument.
Oh, sure.
We woke up today, and now we have this.
Yeah. And they're not white citizens of Springfield. It's everybody in Springfield.
Right. Everybody.
It is a diverse community that is saying, "What the hell have you done to us?"
Right. We didn't get a say so here.
And so I have a friend that owns a factory in Springfield, and I talked to her yesterday. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, we've hired 2 Haitians. They're wonderful workers. They're very reliable. They do not cause any problems. But the rents and the insurance rates for everybody in the community, including those Haitians, is off the chart now.
Because of supply and demand.
Supply and demand. Yeah. There were a finite number of apartments. So,
and look, everything, I always want to follow the money. Who's making money?
Exactly.
Who owns the land that's going to have that they're going to build housing on? Who owns the land who owns the apartments that they're placing these people in? Like, follow the money. Somebody go do that, please, because we haven't done it.
The other thing that has come out, and Vivek Ramaswamy had a meeting there last night. Another thing that has come out is, according to Ohio's BCI, Bureau of Criminal Investigation.
Yeah, investigation, identification, or identification. BCI is the
they have looked, and the FBI have looked at these bomb threats that supposedly were stoked by J.D. Vance and Trump making comments about this at the debate. And Governor DeWine said after investigation, all 33 are hoaxes that came from overseas. They were not from people in Springfield. They were not ginned up by Vance and Trump. And if anything, they won't tell us what country they came from. But I'm just going to guess they came from Iran or Russia, because clearly somebody is trying to make it look as if JD and Trump caused this to happen.
Chaos.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah. Outside countries messing with us.
And DeWine is no friend of Donald Trump. No. And he said it's utter bullshit.
Yeah.
It was there 33 calls. He said 33 hoaxes.
And I'm glad that we have figured this out as quickly as we did.
Yeah.
And it's known, I think, because
how known is it though? Did this go national?
At least we're knowing about it.
Yeah, we know about it. But
it's not known on MSNBC or CNN because they're not
because it's inconsistent.
Or The View. They're running with it as if, this was caused.
Still,
right, and that's why Trump got shot, or that's why there was yet another assassination.
That's how they're connecting the dots.
That's how they're connecting the dots.
Sure. Which they're allowed to, but that's not the greatest connection.
Look, I support their right to be wrong.
Sure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Although Gavin Newsom just signed some kind of a bill in California, evidently you're not allowed to do sarcasm or parody.
He wants to eliminate memes.
He wants to eliminate memes so that if somebody wants to do like that case in Akron where somebody did a fake police website with all kinds of outrageous stuff, it was a parody website and they arrested the guy.
Yeah, that one's a little different. I don't know the law. I've just read the headline on the Newsom thing.
But still,
that's
a First Amendment right. You can be an asshole with a meme.
Exactly.
I mean,
right.
If it's just a meme on social media,
come on.
And they're trying to ban that. Now, if it's like creating a fake police website, I can see a government interest in regulating that because it could create some chaos in the operation of the police force. That would be the argument. Not saying that was true, not saying it wasn't true.
Well, I could see them enforcing their copyright, like, the
or you
badge.
Can enforce a copyright. You can make a case.
There are ways to deal with it without crushing his First Amendment.
Now, if the case here is that they just don't like your meme because it's making fun of them,
right?
Well, then that's insanity.
It's mean. It's mean. And I've even heard. So I'm very pro-Israel, although I wrote a rather scathing blog that's going to come up after the show on this exploding device thing. I'm not in favor of that. But I'm very pro-Israel, and they are, like, currently, there is this thing where if you're an anti-Semite and you say something, right?
Is your pager going to blow up?
It should be, I'm sorry, I'm turning it off.
You missed it.
You shouldn't. Right, it should it blow up. But there's this talk going around in conservative circles that I'm just as against as I would be if it was woke circles. And that is the idea that if somebody spouts anti-Semitism, that their rights to speak should be shut down. The ACLU used to represent Klansmen and skinheads and neo-Nazis and their right to spew their filth, and it is filth, and to march and to wear their stupid white hats and all that bullshit. And I'm like, no, if somebody wants to use anti-Semitism on campus peacefully and have their signs and their meetings, let the antiseptic function of bringing it out into the sunlight operate.
Look, I mean, these are classic arguments for free speech, and these idiots are ruining it. And the ACLU, they've become partisan.
Yes.
And that's what it is.
Right.
There was I'll tell you a story. There was a lawyer in Columbus. His name was Benson Wallman. And I was working on a case with Benson. And I think he's an old ACLU guy. But on his wall, he had two framed items, I'll call them. One was a decision and a quill because he had argued on behalf of the Nazis in the U.S. Supreme Court.
And this is a Jewish lawyer.
Jewish lawyer. The other was a poster of him or something, some memorabilia from Auschwitz. And he says, I have both up there. One to remind me how we prevent the other.
Wonderful man.
Really incredible. Really incredible.
Understood the Constitution.
Yes.
I mean, there is a guy, he's a hero.
Yeah.
And that's fabulous.
And he saw that connection. It still gives me chills when he said that. I mean, it was just this moment like, holy crap. Because both on their face are a paradox, but when you understand what's going on behind the scenes, it makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I mean, so at any rate, some real quick hits on Ohio news, and you guys jump in wherever you'd like. Frank LaRose, our Secretary of State, confirmed he is one of 15 secretaries of state that got a package of white powdery substance. And apparently there's, it's part of trying to affect the election because secretaries of state around the country are in charge of putting on hopefully a fair and open election. And 15 secretaries of state's offices were shut down. while their various states investigated this attack.
Were they delivered on a staggered basis? Because I thought
I don't know.
I thought he had a heads up that it might be coming.
That it might be coming.
Which is fine, know. But I thought it must have hit everybody. It wasn't in concert, everyone on the same day.
I don't know.
But at the same time, it hit us.
Was it a Unabomber thing where like one guy did it all? Or
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, interesting.
Other thing, issue 1 on the ballot this coming election in November in Ohio is to convert from a voter-elected group of people to redistrict congressional districts and House districts to a citizens committee. If the ballot measure, if the constitutional amendment passes, it would then be a group of citizens who are nominated and appointed by retired judges. And the current system, so for people that want to say, well, okay, Republicans control things, the current constitutional system that voters approved, I think it was about 15 years ago, the voters approved a constitutional amendment that says the party that's out of power, in this case the Democrats in Ohio, have a final veto over any redistricting plan. In other words, if they do not approve of it, even though they are only 2 out of the 5 or 7 or whatever the number is, they have a rejection power in the Constitution to say, nope, not going along with it, we don't agree. And then the process has to start over, so it's a negotiation between the majority on the current committee and the minority on the current committee. This constitutional amendment would blow that up, and it would simply be 51% of the people voting. It's done.
So why is this system not working, quote unquote?
Well, I think it is working. I think that the citizens of Ohio, when they elect a governor, they elect senators and state representatives, they are saying to them, you have this additional power to redistrict. But the minority party, whether it's Republicans or Democrats at that time, have also power to veto it.
Yeah, this is a check on the power.
It's a check on the power.
But so
it's only not working because somebody doesn't like the outcome.
I guess so, because I'm thinking, well, if the 2 Democrats have the veto power, why are we still in the situation we are?
So here,
you know what I mean? I'm not very explaining this, but it's like, but it does sound like it's a system that would work. Even though you're at 2, you're still the final voice.
People don't get what they want, or they don't get what they want fast enough, so then they say the system is broken.
Okay.
What I would say in response is that is how the system is supposed to work. It's not supposed to be easy to take this kind of power and enact these kind of laws. We want to make it hard for the government to do things. And the reason we want to do that is because it creates a check and balance on the governmental power.
Yeah.
So this is why we're not a pure democracy. This is why we have an electoral college. This is why we have a United States Supreme Court or an Ohio Supreme Court or whatever state you're in Supreme Court to sort of be the overseer of some of these things constitutionally, because this is checks and balances on power. And everybody who claims that the check and balance on power is impeding their ability to solve the problems, that should be a cue, folks.
They want to
check and see exactly what they want to do.
Okay,
because any promises to go fix all the problems of the world, if only these pesky impediments weren't in the way, give me more power and I'll go fix it for you.
Well, it's even less democratic. I mean, you're going from people that you elect to make these decisions, right? And you get to have a say-so. One person, one vote. You get to vote State Representative Bill Jones, right? And you get to vote on whether you want Bill Jones or Margaret Smith, and you pick Bill Jones. And then you have him, by virtue of your vote, go and participate in redistricting. This new way, if the constitutional amendment passes, it's unelected people. I mean, so you will have no voice in your redistricting.
It's an end around using sort of executive authority or whatever authority you want to get something done that you can't get otherwise done. Look, remember the Ross Perot and Stockdale ticket when there was this famous debate with Stockdale. He just kept going, gridlock.
Right.
And I'm thinking, yes.
Yeah.
That's what we want. And ultimately, when's the last time we had a balanced budget? Was it in the Clinton years? When
I think it was.
I think you're right. Him and Newt Gingrich ironed out.
It's because they couldn't get anything done.
Yeah.
So we had money.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
You
Yeah,
couldn't agree on
exactly.
spending it, so we had it.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah.
It worked.
They're using the old meme of, hey, let's get politics, mean old, the idea that politics is bad. We're going to get politics out of redistricting. Oh, come on.
Well,
Redistricting is politics.
That's at the core of it.
It's the reason for it.
I know. I mean,
Even Obama said, hey, John McCain, elections have consequences.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and for me, the proof in the pudding is Soros and the groups that are pushing this in Ohio are not pushing it in blue states.
Of course not. Of course not.
Right. They're pushing it in states that they want to convert. So come on.
And I know there was one other sticking point to that they continue to use the word gerrymandering in, and I know they complained about that, but it's like, but that is what it is. We have turned gerrymandering into a negative term, but that is the act of doing what it is. We've turned it negative. It's the act of.
That's an excellent point.
And it's a consequence to the election.
It is. I mean, it just is. Point. That's the act of doing what you're going to do is gerrymander.
But on the bigger picture this is why I think the last time around everybody sort of in the know was so focused on local politics, on state level representation, or House and Senate and state level, because this controls a lot of the outcome of the bigger elections for 10 years.
For sure.
Oh, for sure. My gosh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, because it's based off of the
districting,
off of the federal. Oh goodness, when they go door to door and you fill out the form.
The census.
The census.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or as Gary Burbank called it, the senseless.
The senseless.
The senseless. I'm with the U.S. senseless.
Oh God. Yeah. Good bit.
The other amendment that's going to come next year, they didn't get enough signatures on the minimum wage constitutional amendment, but they're continuing to collect them, and the ballot board has approved their language, and technical attorneys looking this have said that if that passes in the spring of 2025, it will be retroactive back to January 1st of 2025 on the minimum wage. So you have places like Waffle House or McDonald's or whoever that might be paying less than $15 or whatever the new wage is going to be set at. They're going to have to, like, surprise, it's June and we just passed this constitutional amendment. You're going to have to write a check for half a year's the difference between what you paid them and what the minimum wage is. So it would be an ex post facto law. I mean, that's crazy.
It's just political nonsense.
I mean, they got to clean up that language. I mean, because that'll kill small business. I mean,
well, Kamala's going to, hey, look, you ask her what her policy is, small business comes to life every single time. So I guess we're all three of us here at the table who own and operate small businesses, we stand to flourish in the next 4 years.
Big article came out in, I think it was Politico or ProPublica, one of those websites, that about $4 million buried in the budget bill, this past budget bill in Ohio, has been going to non-public schools to do refurbishing, to do some expansion. Now, $4 million, it's not a lot, but it has been going to non-public schools for their infrastructure to be able to handle the influx of the ed choice students that are now, you get a check, a voucher is in essence, a scholarship, whatever you want to call it, but you get, like $8,000 to go to a private high school, $6,000 or so to go to a grade school. Basically, if it's $135,000 family income and down, you get the full amount, and then less if you're over the 135 limit. And so there's a coalition that is suing the state of Ohio over the Ed Choice program. That's $1 billion, and as well as this little $4 million, which is the camel's toe under. It's a camel's nose under the tent. Because it's $4 million now, apparently this is very rare in the United States.
It is, but there's also there's a dark side of the coin too, and you wonder when it becomes enough that the government starts to exercise a lever of control over what the private schools are doing.
Right.
So this is, once
It'll
you
come with strings.
Yes.
Yes.
Once you let that camel in the tent, now the government has a lever of power to regulate what's going on. I mean,
and we're talking money to Catholic schools,
Yeah,
to religious schools, both.
Yeah.
I mean,
you can make the argument both ways.
Right. I mean, because I saw that too. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. This is freaking corporate welfare. This is corporate welfare for private schools.
It was surprising to me.
Unbelievable.
It was surprising to me. I would have thought a slicker way to do this, right? Since they get the tuition money. Okay, the tuition money, just up that a little bit with the $4 million and spread it out. And then that private school can spend it on whatever the hell they want.
Well, we've done this historically, I think, with scholarships, right? So it's like you can create a scholarship for somebody to go to the school, and it sort of results in the same thing without creating that direct connection between money and the school, or government money and the school, because sooner or later it becomes an opiate.
Well, this will be a case on the disestablishment clause of the Constitution.
It will
right?
be.
Well, and I pulled up a quote in a story I saw too. The Ohio Constitution says, "Will secure a thorough and efficient system of common schools throughout the state, but no religious or other sect or sects shall ever have any exclusive right to or control of or any part of the school funds of this state."
Exactly.
Look, going back to the
so it's just a suggestion, apparently.
I think there was a bunch
there's a lawsuit. This is going to get hashed out.
Yeah, this will get hashed out. So it's interesting because back in the 80s, actually Sandra Day O'Connor wrote a bunch of the decisions on the free exercise clause and the establishment clause of the First Amendment. So it'll be interesting to see how the current court handles this, because I think my recollection is there are exceptions carved out for funding as long as the funding is done equally.
And I think there was a piece too, like disasters.
Or disasters or things like that.
But this is something completely different.
School vouchers have been held up. They've been upheld in other states.
Because it's more like a scholarship.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's more like a scholarship.
This is totally separate than a voucher thing, though.
Yes.
This is
giving money
separate.
to the school.
To help the flow of this, because the vouchers, the kids are coming your way. So we'll help you build up, because your schools are shit. So we'll help you. It's like, come on.
Well, my kids...
Well,
my kids went to DeSales. It wasn't shit.
But some of them
went
are.
to St. X.
But some of the schools must be, because they're getting $4 million. I'm not saying they all are.
Well, they're out of room because people are beaten.
Guess what? That's their problem. They should
expand the school.
Exactly.
They should expand the school, and the way to do it is through this voucher. They get the money from the voucher. They can spend it any way they want.
Right.
Or the people that are going to their school.
But earmarking it to expand your gymnasium, even I have a little bit of a problem, because it doesn't fit the Constitution.
No.
It's a little like you said, the camel's in the tent.
Yeah. It smells of establishmentism, and I don't like that.
Well, what it smells of is the government exercising. It's laying the foundation or the infrastructure for the government to start regulating private schools.
Well, it does that too, and
that's what I hate about it.
And I guess in examining this, the New York media exposed something I've known for a long time, but they exposed that there is a public school in New York City, a Hasidic Jewish school, that is directly funded by the state of New York, and that it is a public school specifically for Hasidic Jews.
That I have a problem with.
That's outrageous.
That's an establishment.
That's an interesting path you're going down. So
that's what I'm trying to.
The government wants to get out of public schools now, which they have total control over.
Correct.
And now they want to start to control. They potentially want to control private schools.
Do they really think? Look, people say, "Well, governments don't own the banks." Well, yes, they do, because the government tells you where you can put a bank. They tell you how to operate a bank. They tell you all the other stuff.
Because the picture is that private schools, you do your thing. We know you're doing well,
but they have to meet all the same graduating.
No.
Now
all the same testing.
Look, it's called conditional spending.
Teacher certification's the same.
Now, if you don't have a curriculum that we like, you're not going to get this money.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the lever.
That's a lever.
Wow, it's slowly little drip effect.
Yeah.
And they may not even. It might not. I'm not saying it's a conspiratorial scheme and plan in place right now for the end game, but that's where all this stuff.
But it turns with $4 million turns into $40 million, turns into $4 billion.
That's right.
Once you start taking the opium, you can't stop.
That's right.
Interesting.
That's right.
Okay.
I'm skeptical of it. So at any rate,
Wow.
We want to do some national news.
Yeah.
A little bit. So with the second assassination attempt, once again, I just want to observe, and then you guys jump in, but it is the second scenario. It's the second time in 8 weeks where the Secret Service has not controlled the perimeter of a presidential event. And I mean, it's kind of mind blowing. So in Butler, they had a guy with a rifle. I think it was 150 yards from the president, hit him in the head, hit him in the ear. And then at this golf course, I guess hole number 6, there is a gap in the shrubbery, and a Secret Service agent who was one hole ahead of Trump's foursome had the perspicacity to see it, and took action and shot at the guy, and the guy fled, and thank God they captured him. But I heard the head of the Secret Service, the acting head, has said, we need a new paradigm shift here at the Secret Service. We need to go from reactive, where we're in place waiting for an attack, to proactive, where we get out there and control the perimeter. And I'm like, dude.
You're not doing that already?
You're not doing that already? Like, isn't that kind of obvious?
Or is that not their job? Is FBI not supposed to be doing that? I mean, is that what he's meaning?
Man, somebody is not doing it.
Well, what they're saying, they don't have the resources to go secure a perimeter, so they're just like in protection
That's all we
mode.
can do right now.
Yeah, we're doing all we can do.
Because it's really the Secret Service. Because Secret Service is part of FBI? No.
No. It's part of Department of Homeland Security.
Security. Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So
FBI is Department of Justice.
So that's what he's putting out there, going, give us a little bit more teeth, and we'll help you protect versus just going in there secondary.
And we can talk about this in the outrage section. But anyway,
they are saying that Trump now has the same level of protection as President Biden. They're saying they have upped it to the same identical level.
Why wouldn't it have been before?
I don't know, dude.
Because he's a candidate.
Trump is such a lovable character because he just has half the country. Why would he need any protection?
He's a candidate. I mean, think of the alternative here.
Well, and a former president.
Right, and a former,
even
bingo,
more, right? Yeah.
He would already have it, right?
You would think.
Well, the
yes, exactly.
The Ayatollah has a contract out on him, and Mike Pompeo, right, for killing Soleimani.
Yeah.
Like.
Can't forget those things.
Like nation states have actually threatened his life and said, we want him killed. And curiously enough, this Ryan Ruth, he's a soldier of fortune that traveled to Ukraine, was there for, I don't know, months or a year or whatever, fighting with those people and with the Ukrainian mafia. And he's the guy that takes the shots. I mean, he's all over social media, just like that crazy guy in Butler. And I think some of these people are getting activated. I'm a free speecher, but I think when you go on for months and months and years and say Trump is Hitler and Trump is a existential threat to the very existence of the country, some people who are half off a bubble are going to grab a rifle and do something.
And in the reverse side for Democrats, you keep saying, not you, I'm saying, the picture around a Democratic candidate. Yeah, you start to believe it over the years. Yeah, you're right. No. I agree. I agree.
So
yeah, you get indoctrinated.
What do you? Another thing that happened this week I thought was somewhat interesting that sort of leads me down my libertarian maybe economic path is, lo and behold, we are at a state in our economy where we can reduce the interest rates.
The 10-year borrowing rate. Yeah.
That happens to coincide with about 45 days, how many days out from the election?
Right.
So, it's
exactly.
And this is one of those, you love it and hate it at the same time. So if you're in the market and it puts us all in a weird position, or people with my position in a weird position, because look, I don't think that the government should have control of the interest rates in the first place. I think it's sort of it just gives, again, the government a lever of power. Like, what do they really? Why can't the market figure this out? You don't think banks can figure out what to charge another bank?
Right.
Oh, so let the
market figure.
Let the market figure it out. Oh,
yeah, and money's worth this much. Let it be worth this much. Okay. At any rate, the government does do it, and I think a lot of us will take advantage of it. If you're
Andrew Jackson famously killed the National Bank.
Yes, yes.
And then we brought it back.
Yeah. And so we've got this in place, and now lo and behold, it just happens to be the right time. And I'm no expert on inflation or the economy or any of this other nonsense. There's a lot of smarter people than I, but I just know it seems awful coincidental. I don't think anybody can doubt that. And look, I'll take advantage of it. I'll go refi, or I'll buy a house, or maybe that helps a little bit in that way. But you just can't help but think, come on.
But the day after, the stock market didn't do well.
No.
So they weren't all that happy with it. Yeah, again, they run on fear. I understand that. You can't gauge anything off of that.
The stock market hit 42,000, on the Dow, and I think some of that was people taking winnings off the table.
Oh, for sure.
Well, it was, and this tinkers with the bond market too. As soon as interest rates go down, then the bond market starts to go up, right? Is that how that works? And then so you've got now you've got. It creates a swing. And look, I know the only thing I know about investing is I just try to do it as regular as I can on regular intervals. And as my dad used to say, if you think that you're going to buy and sell and beat the market, the smarter people have beat you to it already 10 times over by the time you get there. So too late.
Yeah. Some union news. So the UAW, I think, has comprehensively screwed themselves. They got this great contract, and you saw that Sean Fain guy, running around. Hey, We got the UAW workers this gigantic increase. It was almost 40% in some cases increase for the most vested, most tenured workers. And so so now the UAW is getting ready to strike against Stellantis and Ford Motor Company, because guess what? The reaction is they upped the labor costs so exponentially that these companies they're going to relocate.
They can't afford it, right?
They can't afford. Duh.
Look, when the government puts their finger on the scale again,
or the unions,
overreach.
They overreach.
Yeah, but it just is. It changes the economics that make it work. So unions have their place. They're fine. Go unionize. Do whatever you want. Yeah. But understand there's a consequence to that. There's a limit on how much money there is to go around. And if you push it too hard, they'll just go out of business.
The host
change it, or go to Mexico, or go wherever.
Well, the host organism that you're attached to, that you get your workers employed at, you need to take care of. Yes, you have this negotiation, and there's that tension, and they are your adversary during negotiations. But you don't want to kill the organism,
right?
Because then the jobs are gone.
Right. This is why
it's so stupid. I don't understand why they do this.
It's like the flu. It's like there's a host, and then there's the person that's living in the host, and it's got to work. It's got to work. If the parasite kills the host, the parasite dies too. And I'm not calling union workers parasites. I don't mean to. That's a bad analogy. I'm not doing it, but you get it. It's like it's a symbiotic relationship.
A symbiotic relationship.
What I'm trying to say.
Right.
And I noticed, by the way, talking about unions, you see the Teamsters come out
exactly,
and they have a we're not going to support anybody. Even though 60% of our members are in favor of Trump,
they totally chickened out.
We're not going to support Trump
because
we're not going to support Harris.
What they said is, if Kamala would have gotten at least 51%, they would have support. They would have endorsed her, right?
But Trump didn't get universal support.
He didn't get universal, which would mean what? 100%? He had to get 100%.
Well, universal is 100%, right? That's the universe.
It's nonsensical, but it is kind of
shows you the connection. Right?
It is kind of a win. The last guy to get, last Republican to get endorsed by the Teamsters, I believe, was Ronald Reagan.
Well, Jackie Presser.
Yeah. And that was kind of a reaction to
I think that was Jackie Presser.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Well, it was kind of a reaction to the way that the Democrat-controlled Senate, starting with Robert Kennedy Sr., really went after, Jimmy Hoffa. And there's a long history of antipathy between the Democratic Party, some of their leaders, and the Teamsters that goes way back.
Yeah.
And President Reagan, I think, also let the Teamsters Union out of federal monitoring. There was a change he had made through the Labor Relations Board where, because of Jimmy Hoffa and because of the robbery of the pension fund for the Teamsters, they were under federal control, and Reagan lifted that, and the Teamsters rewarded him with an endorsement, I think is how that went down.
All right. Well, let's shift gears, talk a little bit of justice for all, where we try to cover some, interesting police and justice and legal topics.
So Steve, in particular, and Brett is like me, a non-lawyer, but Steve, I am outraged by this decision up in Rocky River, Ohio. You may have heard about this at a Giant Eagle store. A mother and a 3-year-old that she's pushing around in the bass cart are just, like they're just regular shoppers. Didn't know this lady. This lady grabbed a knife in the store, a steak knife or something, hanging on the the pegs at Giant Eagle, and stabbed the baby to death, the 3-year-old baby to death, and stabbed the mother.
Oh.
And
unknown, they didn't know each other. She's got a lunatic, right?
Right. Just and she had a blotter sheet of previous assaults on other people, but not a murder like this. At any rate, they have decided because they say she's incompetent, there will be no trial and there'll be no jail. I'm sure she'll be put in some kind of insane home, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know what they do with people these days who are criminally insane
Well, she's not criminally insane.
No.
Yet.
Yes.
Yet.
But I'm outraged by this because I think, hey, man, come on.
All right. So I am not. It depends. To me, it all depends. So the question is this. You have somebody, if I'm representing somebody who's accused of a crime, the first thing that they have to be able to do is, or the first thing that I look at is this individual competent to stand trial? And that means, do they understand the nature of the proceedings against them, and are they able to assist me in the defense? And it's a rare bird, but it happens more often than you might think that I get a client who doesn't really understand what's going on, can't really help. So there's a process for this. The court will appoint an expert psychologist to perform an evaluation.
Apparently that happens.
And that happens.
Yeah.
And then they send the person on. If the person comes back and the evaluator says, no, this person's totally competent, I get a chance to try again. I can ask for a second evaluation. And I think the state pays for that. And even then, if it comes back that this person, and say then it comes back incompetent, there can be a full-blown hearing in a court where we have both sides sort of present evidence and they're experts, and the judge will decide competent or not competent. Even if the person is determined to be non-competent, doesn't end the case. They send the person off to like restoration school, I'll call it, where they're trained up on how to be competent, which is really to say they're trained up on how to get through a competency evaluation. I've had clients who come back and they're equally spacey about it, but then they all of a sudden understand what a trial means or what a lawyer does or what the system means because they've been educated on those terms. And now they are, quote, deemed competent to stand trial. So then let's go the other way. They come back and they're still incompetent. Well, they won't get prosecuted for this. They are typically placed in some institution for a period of time and monitored. It's not an outcome anybody likes, but it's also, I think it's equally offensive to prosecute those who don't have the mental capability of understanding either the case or what they've done or the process for crimes. So this is like, look, this is the play in the joints of our system. This is the part of the system that people don't like. You don't like it if you're or if your loved one is incompetent and they did something they just don't understand, and you don't like it if you're the victim of a crime by somebody who's incompetent who did something they don't understand. There's no good way out here. There's no good justice for anybody here. And then the other thing that you've talked about or sort of hinted at is insanity, whether somebody is actually insane. Now, that's a different thing. They're competent to stand trial, but at the time, they were insane. They didn't appreciate the circumstances or appreciate their actions, or they acted as in some irresistible impulse.
In this case, they're not even going to try.
They haven't even gotten that far because the person's not competent. Now, that doesn't mean this person cannot be restored to competency, and my guess is she will be at some point in the future restored to competency, and they'll bring it back and they'll do it all over again.
I mean, that 3-year-old baby's gone.
Yeah. Do her prior. What did you? She said she had a
rap sheet.
Do they come into play then? Is that evidence?
It comes
as a progress of her insanity or her inability to live in society.
Maybe. So what might happen is the evaluator sort of looks at different psychological models and testing. I don't know if I would guess that some of those have to do with the person's history within the system. So if you've got a person who's done a bunch of loony stuff or crazy stuff or stuff that would sort of hint that this individual has severe mental defects, then I think that stuff is relevant, not because of their convictions, but because of the conduct.
Okay. Yeah. I didn't know if it was a standalone act or we can look behind and
I think they can.
Okay.
I think they can. But again, not
would think
just because of conviction, but because if you've engaged in crazy behavior for years and years and years, that certainly lends credibility to the fact that you're crazy now. And these are not psychological terms, obviously, but right. Suffer from a mental defect now.
Yeah.
Look, these are hard cases. I mean, it sucks. I've had plenty of them, and these are hard cases.
Man. Yeah.
Well, Kentucky judge was shot by a sheriff yesterday and killed.
I saw that.
So I don't know, some kind of personal dispute. So that's emerging. I don't know the facts other than shot to death. The sheriff has been arrested. Deputy sheriff, I assume. Maybe not the sheriff.
I can't help it. The song is going through my head.
Yeah.
The sheriff. I didn't shoot the sheriff. The sheriff shot the judge.
They didn't shoot the sheriff, and they didn't shoot the deputy.
Jeez.
No, that's horrible. So look, I mean, there's a reason that's getting national news because it's just you don't hear that very often.
No.
It's like, now there is. I will say this: small counties throughout our country have their own little power structures.
Oh yeah.
So if you think if you live in one, you know.
Oh yeah.
That and typically it's one party or the other that sort of controls all the local politics, and it doesn't matter what you really believe or think if you're a member of the party. But then the infighting within the party becomes so incestuous that it's like, all right, well that person's supporting this person, so that person gets this, and this person gets that, and there's always like it's the classic scenario. So I wonder if there's like an age-old power struggle here going on.
Yeah,
between the deputy.
It'll be
and the
interesting
judge.
to follow this up and see what that's all about. Here in Columbus, we had 3 shootings in 10 days on the campus of Ohio State University, and that is not a happy trend. And I think it's bleeding over from the short north, which is totally out of control, also.
Yep.
And the deal is, and we've had the FOP guy in here, Brian Steele, and he has said, essentially, it's kind of a blue flu thing that they're gonna show up to do the chalk line around the victim laying in the street. They're not looking to be proactive and jump into situations. In general, a few heroic cops will take that chance, but you're seeing more and more of these police officers prosecuted. Look, and you
get what you pay for.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah. So you get what you incentivize. Yeah. And look, it doesn't. I'm not necessarily. I am definitely not supporting the police conduct here.
Yeah.
So I hate that there's this thing called the blue flu. I hate that this exists, and it's certainly not taking their side. On the other hand, you can understand how it happens.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Sure.
And if they're afraid to go do their job for getting sued or indicted, or if they're not going to put themselves at risk anymore, they're like, well, you know what? Screw it. We'll just show up.
Well, Mayor Ginther does not have their back.
Or at least they don't feel like it.
They don't feel like it.
Right.
Like they're the bad guys. Yeah. Automatically, there's a shooting, police involved. It's almost like a knee-jerk thing. Oh, well, the cop must have done something wrong. And it's like, hey, man, you need to suspend, judgment. And the calm thing to tell any community is there's a process. We're going to investigate. It's going to be an open investigation. All the facts will come out. I will see to it that any camera, video, body cam stuff, you'll see everything. But you got to give us a chance to investigate. Don't go off half-cocked and start rioting or doing other acts of civil disobedience that are going to harm the very community that we're trying to protect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think this is like sort of ending up where we started. Sunshine on these things is always what's important. So it's like we don't treat cops, generally speaking, all the same just because they're police officers one way or another. These are individual cases with individual circumstances and individual facts. So if a police officer oversteps his bounds or her bounds and screws up, well, they ought to be held accountable, but not held accountable every time just because it's politically advantageous to do that. And I think that's how they feel right now.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, look, let's wrap it up. We've got some outrageously wonderful facts. Now, what is outrageously wonderful? Well, there's certain things that we're all going to be a little bit outraged about, and certain things we all are going to
go around the horn.
A little bit of rumbling.
Yeah.
You started.
Yeah.
Well, to me, the outrage of the week is Israel blowing up somewhere around 2,500 to 3,000 devices. And listen, I love Jewish people. I love Israel. I am for Israel in this titanic battle between them and Iran with the proxies of Hamas and Hezbollah. I am totally in favor of Israel winning this. That said, I don't have to be Ben Shapiro and other people that are also pro-Israel, like I am. I don't have to be in favor of every tactic that Benjamin Netanyahu decides to do. And you're saying that these are targeted and very specific and discriminating, and I say bullshit to that. This is like putting landmines around a civilian area and children walk out into the landmine field. a cell phone or a pager or a radio is an attractive device to children. And it also gets left in the household on, say, a kitchen table. And whether that's a Hezbollah terrorist who happens to have that or not, because the terrorist may have gone to the bazaar and swapped phones with a merchant, and a totally innocent person now has that. And these things were turned on, to me, indiscriminately, at least 20 deaths that we know of. And I think it's against the laws of civilized warfare to do this. And I will also say, like I said, back in October the 7th, in our reaction to that, I was hoping that the IDF, and I'll bet a lot of generals at the IDF agree with me, I was hoping the IDF would go into Gaza surgically. And I know it would have cost more IDF lives to do this, just like our guys, right, who went into Iraq and surgically went after Al-Qaeda and ISIS. Okay, same way. It would have been much more difficult. But instead, you leveled whole neighborhoods, and as many as 20,000 people are said to have been killed in Gaza, which is way more than the number of Hamas terrorists in Gaza. And so you used a sledgehammer where you should have used a scalpel. And I'm mad about that, but I still want Israel to win. So don't give me any bullshit like Ben Shapiro saying people like me are Jew haters. That is complete bullshit, and it is intellectually dishonest, and it makes me angry. I don't like being called a racist or a Jew hater or anything like that. I love the Jewish people. I want Israel to win this, and I think they're a great people, a great nation, and they could have done a hell of a lot better than this. Yeah. That's my outrage of the week.
Succinct, to the point. Yeah, yeah. My outrage, we talked about a little bit earlier, just that Ohio channeling tax money to private schools. That just drives me insane. Another level of corporate welfare. I saw that number, and yeah, $4 million doesn't seem like a lot, but I think as we expanded, it potentially could turn into more money, as well as starting a wave across the country as well too. And it's basically kind of starting here. So it doesn't need to be done. It doesn't need to be done.
Well, I've got mine is both outrageous and wonderful at the same time. It is outrageous to me that the Fed would come to the aid of a political party and lower interest rates right before the election, because it is nothing more than, if it's not a ruse or if it's not some backdoor way to gain support for your candidate, then it sure looks that way. And maybe we could have waited a little bit longer because things weren't going to change anyway. But it's also wonderful because we all get lower interest rates.
Yeah, all right. Something positive. So go to museumofplay.org. You get to vote on the finalists for they have a Toy Hall of Fame. And this year, I love this. So the Toy Hall of Fame finalists this year, Apples to Apples game. Okay. Balloons. Can you believe balloons have not been a Hall of Fame toy so far?
That's crazy.
Choose Your Own Adventure game books, which I don't remember that series. The Hess toy trucks, which I kind of remember since 19.
I remember that.
Yeah. Yep. My Little Pony, whatever. Phase 10, Pokemon trading card game. RC vehicles are on the list to vote for. Yeah. I love that.
I'd go with that one all day long.
Sequence, Sticky Horse, the hobby horse with the stick, the groin killer. Trampolines and Transformers.
Like riding your sister's bicycle.
Exactly. So you can go, to museumofplay.org and vote on your favorite. And so while you're scrolling while you're on the website, take a look at where they put the strong. There's a little marble, and the marble spins when you scroll. I love it. So, anyway.
Thank you. My wonderful thing of the week is I recommended my brother go see. Go to the annual banquet of the Heartland Institute in Chicago. So I said, Patrick, you should go. So Pat bought a ticket. He went. And the main speaker was Nigel Farage, famously from Great Britain, who was behind Brexit and is building up his party as a force in the parliament to, represent conservatives. So my brother goes to this thing, and guess what? He is sat in between these two guys, and this is wonderful. Dr. Larry Arnn.
Oh, yeah, that guy's incredible. From
on one side of Patrick.
Up in Michigan.
On the other side of his dining table is Dr. Jay Bhattacharya.
Oh, that's awesome.
Who in his speech said a silicon curtain is descending on America.
A silicon curtain.
Using Winston Churchill's line.
The Iron Curtain.
A steel curtain.
Or a steel curtain.
Is descending. So
the Iron Curtain was the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's
defense.
my wonderful thing. I'm so happy for Patrick. And those are two of his heroes. And my God, he's having dinner.
And I've got my real wonderful thing that I did want to talk about is that I go to courts all over the state of Ohio and sometimes even out of state in federal courts in various places. And so often it's such a miserable place to go in. You go in and people are just awful. Nobody wants to be there. And you're typically greeted in this day and age by some security at the door. You go through a metal detector, you got to throw all your stuff in. And sometimes they make you take your belt off, sometimes your shoes. It's just varying degrees.
Yeah.
I was in a small county in southern Ohio. I'm not going to mention the county because I don't want to get anybody in trouble. But I had a case down there, and I was greeted time and time again by a gentleman who was probably retired law enforcement, one of the most pleasant, positive individuals I have ever encountered in any situation like that. I watched him make everybody who came in and out of that door feel just a little bit better about the fact that they had to come in and out of the courthouse door, me included. Nice. And here he gave me. On his desk was the Holy Bible. And I said, well, that's quite a book you got there. And, that sparked a conversation that we had over the 3 or 4 times I went. He hands out these cards. On each side is a piece of scripture that he just gives to people that he thinks need it. Now, it's not everybody doesn't get one.
Yeah, that's nice.
But if somebody's receptive to it, they get it. And at the same time, he brings everybody up, sort of spreads the word a little bit.
Yeah,
that's great, man.
I find that exceptionally wonderful.
That's cool,
and it's in my wallet. I've got 2 of these because he's given me 2.
That's great.
Good for him.
And both had to do, by the way, miraculously with some of the stuff I've been internally struggling with at that time. It is remarkable how well that sort of fits together. So. Anyway, That's my wonderful. With that, I think we can wrap it up. This is Common Sense Ohio coming at you live on Rumble. We're going to start. We've been each and every week recording. Now we're going to start streaming each and every week. And you know what? We come right from the middle each and every week. CommonSenseOhioShow.com, at least until now.